For the longest time, the Mughal Empire felt invincible. I mean, for nearly 200 years, it was this absolute giant, controlling huge parts of the Indian subcontinent. It was the definition of wealth, of power, of incredible culture. But, as they say, all great empires eventually see their suns set. So let's get right into the story of how this giant finally stumbled and fell.
And yeah, that brings us to the biggest question of all, doesn't it? How on earth did one of the wealthiest empires the world had ever seen just fall apart? Well, it wasn't one single moment. Think of it more like a slow sickness from the inside that was finally finished off by a brutal blow from the outside. You see, the first cracks, the real deep ones, they all started from within. Long before any invader was even thinking about crossing the mountains, the empire was already in trouble, basically eating itself alive with its own internal problems. And these reasons weren't isolated issues. They were like a line of dominoes. It really kicked off with Emperor Aurangzeb's policies. They cost a fortune and annoyed a lot of people. That then led to a whole string of weak heirs who, let's be honest, just weren't cut out for the job. And what happens when you have weak rulers fighting for the throne? Exactly. Constant, bloody wars of succession. The end result of all this? Total political instability. The heart of the empire was basically failing.
And if you want a poster child for this decay, look no further than Emperor Muhammad Shah. This guy was in charge during this incredibly critical time, but his nickname was Rangila, the pleasure lover. So while his empire was literally crumbling around him, he was way more focused on parties and art than on, running the country or defending its borders. The center just wasn't holding anymore. So what do you think happens when the leader back in Delhi is weak and completely distracted? Well, the regions on the fringes start getting ideas. Powerful governors and local chiefs saw a golden opportunity to build their own little kingdoms, and they absolutely went for it. And just like that, the empire started to break apart. You had Hyderabad in the south, Bengal in the east, Awadh up north. And listen, these weren't just some random towns. These were the richest provinces, the empire's cash cows, and now they were pretty much acting like independent countries. All this was happening while the Maratha were getting stronger and stronger, building a rival power that was challenging the Mughals head-on. The empire was just bleeding territory and influence. Okay, so the empire is weak, it's fractured, and it's chaotic. And that's when someone on the outside notices. Into this mess steps a seriously scary threat. Nader Shah, the ruler of Persia. He looked at this rich, divided, and totally undefended empire and saw exactly what it was: the score of a lifetime. Now, for centuries, everyone knew that the gateway for invading India was the northwest frontier. The powerful Mughal emperors of the past guarded it like a hawk. But now, with everyone in Delhi busy fighting each other for scraps of power, this supercritical border was just left wide open. It was basically a giant welcome sign for an invasion. And when that disaster came, it came unbelievably fast. In 1738, Nader Shah crosses into India. By February of 1739, he smashes the Mughal army at the Battle of Karnal. And just a month after that, his troops are marching through Delhi, starting one of the most vicious sacks of a city in history. It was just a stunningly quick and total collapse. So how did the huge Mughal army get crushed so easily? Well, it was a classic case of old versus new. The Mughals had this gigantic, clumsy army stuck in the past, using old-school tactics. Nader Shah, on the other hand, had a smaller, leaner, super-disciplined force that used modern strategy, all led by a brilliant and absolutely ruthless general. It was like a modern war machine running over a museum piece. And the end result was the ultimate humiliation. The emperor of the mighty Mughal Empire, Muhammad Shah himself, was taken prisoner. This was so much more than a military loss. It was the symbolic death of Mughal power. There was absolutely no coming back from that. So, with the emperor captured and the army shattered, the capital city of Delhi was completely defenseless. And what happened next wasn't just a battle, it was a systematic, terrifying plunder that would seal the empire's fate for good. Nader Shah basically unleashed his army on the city. For weeks, Delhi was just brutalized. Its people were massacred, its wealth was stripped bare, and its treasures were all rounded up. The very heart of the Mughal Empire was being ripped out piece by piece. The amount of wealth that was stolen is just mind-boggling. It's estimated that Nader Shah hauled away loot worth around 70 crore rupees at that time. I mean, that's an astronomical sum that completely bankrupted the empire. The imperial treasury was empty.
But this was about more than just cash. Nader Shah took the symbols. He took the legendary peacock throne. For more than 100 years, this incredible jewel-covered throne had been the ultimate symbol of Mughal power. To lose it, that was like losing their crown and their soul all at once. And if that wasn't devastating enough, he also took one of the most famous gems in all of human history, the Kohinoor diamond. So think about it. In one single invasion, the Mughals lost their money, their prestige, and the two most famous symbols of their entire dynasty. It was a total wipeout. So what's the big takeaway here? Nader Shah's invasion didn't just beat the Mughal army, it completely destroyed the very idea of Mughal authority. And this creates something historians call a power vacuum. That's when the central power, the main boss, just disappears. The fall of the Mughal Empire left this huge political hole right in the middle of the Indian subcontinent. The one central power that had held everything together for 200 years was suddenly gone. And as we know, nature can't stand a vacuum. Somebody was bound to step in and fill it. And that leaves us with one final, really important question to chew on. How does the death of one empire actually give birth to another? Because that power vacuum, that empty space left by the Mughals, was the perfect opening for new players, like the Marathas and eventually the British East India Company, to rise up and take over. The twilight of the Mughal Empire directly set the stage for the dawn of a brand new and very different kind of empire.